UTC. That's very confusing.
That would be confusing.
Yeah, I'm like, this is not 10 p.m. or 6 p.m. rather. Yeah, so this is something I think I've been like actually wondering since the summit I went to in June. Like, how do I refer to people as in a group? Like, that's one thing I kind of do this from like Facebook and kind of I want to say from Instagram, even though it's like a group message kind of thing. Is like, how do I define a group of people that I'm in a group with without having like a middle service in between? One idea I had, it was like kind of like a page, a private page that's protected. Like it would list people on that page, and if I were to use that as like the H card that's referenced, or rather use it in place of an H card, it would then send mentions to those people on the pages. So if I had like an event and I wanted to invite people in groups, I could just use that page link. Or if I wanted to like specify something to, it's basically like, this is actually kind of wrapping on top of private web mentions versus like saying to one person, I mentioned my personal group page. The thing is like, people then get added to that group. How do they remove themselves to that group? Like that's like something I was trying to explore. And like, I didn't know if anybody else had any other ideas and like approaches, or if there's something that's been implemented. Like the wiki page has a bit of information on like, I would have said definitions of it, but not necessarily like anybody who's implemented something that's gone deep into it.
Okay, so the groups in your mind, the way you're thinking about groups, I think it's a little bit different than I've thought about groups, but I think it's good. So you're thinking of a group that people can join and leave, as opposed to like a list of contacts, like a list of people that like I know, oh, these are this group of people, and I might, want to send something to all of them. Like a group in your contacts list is something more private, whereas a group that you're referring to is more like a public group, like a forum or something like that, that people could join and say, I want to be part of this. Almost like a web ring thing.
Right, yeah, so I guess like essentially with web ring, but like now it's like, I want these things to be kind of like protected or necessarily private by default. Like nobody should be able to just stumble upon these. So yeah, and like I think group here of a term is kind of overloaded because like the scope, the way you're defining, I kind of retaught myself to consider that like a tag of sorts. So put them into a category. That also might be like me just reading too much micro formats. But yeah, that's where I'm falling with this. And yeah, the only way I could see it is like it being similar to sending a, maybe not necessarily a web mention, but something that could like update a page. Hey, I want to join this group, or rather be like a reverse, like an invitee. Like I want to invite you to this group.
Okay.
Like, yeah, it gets a little hairy. This also comes like a use case. Like there's like a person use case thing. Like I want to like, let's say if I invite like two friends of mine, like or rather like the six of us, and we all have our own sites, and I want to do like movie, because we do like movie things once a month. Like I want to be able to invite these people over, but like it's not something I want to publish on my site publicly. But if they do come and visit, they'll be able to view it. Gotcha.
So prior art wise, this is reminding me a lot of, and this is probably exactly what you're going for, Facebook groups, right? So a couple things there that comes to mind. One, there's always an owner of a Facebook group, right? And you can make multiple owners, but there is always an owner. So it makes, because at first I was thinking this doesn't belong on someone's site, does it? Like maybe it needs its own site, but no, you're right. Like it belongs on your site as the owner of the group, and other people can be invited. It could be a public group or a private group, right? But people can be invited. They can request to leave. All those same things you can do on a Facebook group. So I think that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah. Now, yeah. I was afraid of like, would other people need copies of like the group manifest? Because then how do they refer to the person? Because like now this one person becomes a bottleneck. Like if this person has like, let's say we're sending like I'm writing like a note to this group, and rather not a note, but I'm mentioning this group in a note. It's a private note, and rather like the only people who can view are the people in this group. If it's 3 people, that one person has to send a mention to 3 people, and if they want to view it, they have to go to that person's site, see who else is in this list, and then be able to reply to it. Or maybe not. Like maybe it can just reply to the post, and the act of replying to the post, if it still has the same mention list, the site itself can send the mentions on behalf of the user. I don't know. These things are kind of important to me in terms of like figuring them out now, because it can determine what else I can do. Like, can I share photos of this group? How do they get like ACL for that? Like, I'm being very specific because like this is something like this is exactly what I want to build it so I can invite people to events, but keep them private. So like that's like from there I want to do anything else, but like that's what I'm trying to close it at. Yeah, there's no reason why I should tag like 6 people's URIs every time, like, URLs rather every time. Like there's like a what do you call this? A unifying factor on these people, and it's because they're in this group called B. And like I know that in my head, I should be able to like write that out somehow. Yeah. I don't know if this would require like a different type, like a H group, or I mean, I don't think it would require like a whole new thing. That'd be kind of, but maybe I don't know. Because that way the site can respond differently in terms of ACL, like who can remove themselves, leaves visibility, things they could play. Yeah, I don't know if anybody else has like any speculations or ideas or even thoughts on like how do they solve groups.
Yeah, so I guess right. Some of the things to think about, the attributes that exist in a group. So you have your group members, right? In like say a Facebook group. Let me say this is Facebook group conversion thoughts. All right, so we've got like group members, like who's members of the group. And then did you say you want posts to the group to actually like say live on that page like Facebook, or no, you just want to be able to refer to that on a post on your own website and then basically send it to them?
Right. Like in the case, like if I wrote a private web mention to someone, and this is me also kind of like grabbing scope here, like, or rather write a post that's unlisted in this case private. The only way we could view is by using a private web mention to view it. Sorry, I almost lost my train of thought. Yeah, in that case, like you probably tag the person each individually, and you send a web mention out to them with the code, and that lookup is done by using that person's direct H card there. I guess like what this would be kind of like overloading that H card to not have one person, but like let's say 7, but it's not really defined there. Like you won't find out until you expect that URL.
Yeah.
And I keep saying I'm trying to unlearn that. So there's that. Like, it requires like going one level deeper, but then like that way you can dispatch out this set of mentions, and like that's the one thing that could be transparent because it doesn't matter like that way you don't need to know the size of the list in advance. Like it could be like 3 persons today and like 7 persons next time.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. A way to send a private web mention to multiple people without having to remember who all is on the list.
Are you trying to say something, Aaron?
What? No, sorry.
Okay, no, because I saw your circle coming up. I'm like, he's not saying anything.
I should just mute if I'm not actually talking. There's a little bit of background noise in here.
Oh, gotcha. All right, interesting. And then we've got Grant has put some definitions of a group. You've got a simple list of people that you want to publish/mention. So that's one-way interaction. That's kind of like a mailing list. Yep. And that's kind of like how I thought of as a contact list that I mentioned initially. And then a forum chat style with interactions between members. Yep. Normally members can join and leave at will. So that's good. That seems a little bit more like what you're talking about, where people are interacting with each other. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if the only thing that exists on that page is a bunch of people, then it kind of seems like you could, like step 1, right? The people are H cards. That makes sense. You could group them as a feed, but then that doesn't necessarily define how to interpret that feed. So that's where it gets sticky. So yeah, I don't see a clear way to be able to make that happen with the existing like markups and things like that. I guess when someone adds or removes themselves from the list, are they doing anything other than like adding or preventing you from contacting them in that way? Like, is there any other role of that group other than like you sending them a web mention? Or I guess anyone like, they receive it and then they say they want to send a message back to the group. Is there anything other than that, like communication, one person to the rest of the group?
That's a good question. Well, I guess I saw that as like the point of reference, but because like there's also like a little implied flow here that I have. Like with that auth code, it would kind of confirm if the person who's requesting to use that code is in that group as well in that post. So there's that little tangle, because which then now kind of revokes them from seeing prior posts if they were to like somehow get it linked and try to. Well, they can't like reuse a. Well, hopefully they can't use a old prior web mention to get a code back to the old post. But that's where I play in there, because then that's how I like if one were to implement this in my quick mental scoping of it, they're able to peek and go back into it. I don't know if that fully answered your question there.
Gotcha. So yeah. So really it's all about creating the communication. And that's interesting that you want to potentially prevent them from seeing previous stuff, because like in Facebook group, if you add them, they can just see everything on there.
Which you should be able to do with this. Like that
Okay.
is, yeah, because provided like let's say the act of requesting that code gives you a token. The confirmation step, or rather like before you get that token, it will confirm like if the client the client ID who's requesting this is a member of said group. So that way it should be able to, like, if the group has a way of like, let's say this group for some reason it persists every well, it captures actually all the web mentions that are made to that page. Like if somebody sent a web mention, because like you got an H card, so it's like a direct mention, but like a mention to that group, you can view them all there. So that person could go to that page and view all of the ones that received to that page.
Oh, gotcha.
So they should be able to see the history there. Yeah, there's actually like, all right, now I'm thinking about private events again. Events are like just top man, because once you have that, everything else just kind of blows up there. Group payments go also as well if you do indie payments again. But yeah, so that's one thing that will be given to them. But there, once that access to the list is removed, then it's kind of gone. Or rather, they won't be able to view the list of posts on that page anymore. So
okay, interesting. Now, so two workflows that come to mind in that. So you write a post. You could either send the post from your website to people and somehow reference this. Like essentially, you would have a post on your page directed to the group page, and then you of course send a web mention to that group page. You could then either send web mention to people that are on that group from your original page, but then they're going to have to go to your post and then see where your post links to and then diagnose that. So that's one workflow. But the other workflow is if you send a web mention from your post to the group page accepts. That way it doesn't matter like where that group page exists. It could be on your site. It could be on a third-party site like IndieWeb.org. It could be on someone else's site. You send a web mention directly to that page. That gets processed and displayed. If you're a member of the group, it gets processed and displayed on that page. And that all behaves as completely normal, right? Considering that like private web mentions are a thing.
Right.
Then the question is, how do you send a web mention once a new thing? And that kind of feels like that page should send a web mention to everyone in the group every time there's a new post on that page. So rather than going from your site to them, you'd go your site to the group page and the group page out to them.
Yeah, sounds like to me like a reader at that point, and people should subscribe to that group page's URL in a reader to see the updates.
Interesting, huh? Yeah, because you could essentially get the feed from it. Yeah, the feed out of the mentions that are made to that page, or rather the
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so you're essentially having this group page that they can subscribe to in their reader, and then everyone sends web mentions to that page, which allows that page to get new posts.
And that actually sounds a lot like how we currently syndicate to Indie News.
Wow. Yeah.
Indie News is basically a group.
Yeah.
Same with all the IndieWeb.xyz.
Yeah, it's a public
group pages. Those are all public groups.
Open access, anybody could join in. There's like no list of members.
Yeah, there's no membership, but like anybody just joins by posting something. Yeah. So as soon as you want to make it private, you have some sort of approval process to join it, and only when you join it can you then put content in it.
Okay.
And only if you're a member can you subscribe to it. And if, as we just talked about in the last session, if we assume that we have a way to do this server-to-server authentication stuff, then we can do private feed fetching and private web mentions essentially.
Right. Okay. Huh. Yeah, that should. So now this is dependent.
Yeah.
Dependency chaining.
Yeah. Which I think anytime you start doing anything private, like that's instantly going to be dependent on the last session.
Yeah. That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. We need some good mechanism for authenticating requests, like GET requests. Yeah. And that last session is basically was our attempt to try to figure that out, right? Once we have that, then all of the private stuff is a lot easier to it just kind of falls into place.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So interestingly, it kind of seems like you don't have to worry about marking up that page with the members in any way. Really, the membership, like you can display them on the page, that's fine. But really, the membership is like when they get invited or accepted, like you would send them like a web mention post saying like you are now a member of this group, which is pretty standard, right? Like you see on a Facebook group, when someone gets added, it says like Aaron Parecki was added to this group. You can have a post like that and then send that mention to that person. So they get that and they know that they're now available and they can subscribe to that group in their reader.
Okay. Okay.
And like you could do that with posts and web mentions, but you don't have to. So like you could imagine that someone just has a manually managed group list. Yeah. And it's like one person is just like, I'm going to add these 5 people and that's it. Right. Or you could do a sort of like a more forum style or like private Google group style where someone has to actually post their intent to join. And they can actually post that as a post on their website. And then the thing could reply with a web mention saying that it was done, saying that they're added, right? But like that doesn't have to happen. That doesn't have to be the way it works.
Right. But like it does keep a bit of transparency. Like there's an audit log of sorts. It could be like a proof.
Yeah, which is like good in some cases and not good in others.
Right. Okay.
But I don't think that is a dependency on this, right? Whereas like
no.
All of this has to have some way to privately fetch content in order for it to work.
Yeah. Okay. So, no, that's actually using the page is of course. Yeah. Okay, that works. I mean that's like very doable. I mean, I could actually write that up today.
It does feel very doable. We just need that private.
Oh no, like not even from a private aspect of things. This could be like an affiliate.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Indie News is basically a half of this, where it's sharing that content with a group. It's just that there is no membership process.
I guess now that kind of just goes to like how is membership defined, which is basically like a one-to-many relationship, or rather a many-to-many, depends how you look at it. Yeah. But like now that's kind of ties into the idea, like essentially I'm friending this group, or are you friending or following?
Definitely following.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe friending. I don't know.
No, well, I say friendly because of the request process. Like it has to a bi-direct. Yeah. Yeah, that's actually something else I've been kind of curious about, like just even friending, because that could be like an implicit auto accept. If I'm friends with this person and I own this group, you should just let them automatically in. Like there was like so many little rules I was trying to set up. I'm trying to replicate life.
The other thing you could do for public groups, at least, you could just say you're a member once you post into it. So for example, like Indie News could just say everyone that's posted, like here's a list of everyone that's sent a web mention. These are the quote members of Indie News, because it's
that's actually a great idea. I like that idea.
Yeah. So, and that's nice because that doesn't add any extra overhead. You just take a look at all the web mentions received. There's no like request approval process. Obviously, when you get private, then you really have to start dealing with that request remove, etc. But
yeah. The ultimate test, you have to post once a month for your membership icon to appear on the site.
There you go. And actually, like dropping people once it's been like a year or like 2 years or some kind of time actually does kind of make sense. Like, because it shows that they have become kind of inactive.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Opens pull request. Well, I couldn't. I actually keep trying to look at PHP code, and I'm like, it's been so long. Okay, cool. I think I probably could try it. I'll just have to create a feed for the page, and that's the only bit. Yeah, the page has been rendered. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's doable. Okay. Makes me wonder. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, full disclosure here. Like, I am quietly trying to rebuild Eventbrite to a certain extent. So like, this is where I kind of ties in because like you have like private teams and whatnot. Like I had to, like I think is it on this board? It's not on the board behind. It's over in the corner. Like all like the major features there. Like definitely there's a concept of teams and groups, and the major events and like, but like that's like a hard part of it. Like having private access control over it because you can't see who's a part of a team. You could just see like the whole group there. But that's a whole different topic. I should have put that as a topic. Events, or rather like
events. Oh yeah, it's a fun topic.
Well, but yeah, okay. Yeah, and I guess like this is another thing because like since you now like the act of doing it as a feed kind of changes things now because you can essentially have disappearing posts if people can subscribe to the feed and get content, but like they only. I was wondering if you can only receive web mentions for like when. No, okay, yeah. Through a feed, you would be able to do that rather. I was wondering the content effectively.
It's the same thing because you can just choose which post to put in the feed. You don't have to always include all of them.
Oh, that's what you're saying. Yeah, it's like a fixed history. It goes back like a few hours. Okay.
So like Indie News actually shows on just the first page only like the last 20. If it just didn't include a link to the older ones, that would work.
Yeah. Okay. Huh. Okay. All right, and like that's kind of the plumbing for like indie messaging, quote unquote. Well, so you have a group you can send messages to, just to be like near real time.
That's a thought, yeah.
That's true because if you have web sub everywhere, you write a post, send a web mention to that group, it gets processed, appears on the page, sends a web sub out to all the readers refresh. It's a bit delayed, but not bad.
I mean, yeah, real time's overrated. Okay. Man, this is really contingent on auto off. I mean, there's probably a way around this. No, there isn't.
There is, but you're going to be doing essentially what auto auth is trying to do, but worse.
Yeah.
We've done this before with web mention. And
oh, that's funny. Okay.
We have like 3 different drafts of private web mentions, and they aren't very good.
Like the only other option I was thinking is like solidifying like the request flow. Like, okay, I friend you and you friend me.
But you still have to know that a request is coming from someone else. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly. Like, I was gonna use like a client. No, I can't even do that.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that tells us the last session was really important, and we really need to start working on auto auth. So that might have to be my project for the weekend: is get auto auth in my server, and then at least I can join in showing people some private stuff and having people who do that show private stuff on my website, and see it on their website. So.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's the next step for me is trying to do that authentication in my website this weekend.
Right. Okay. I don't know if I actually locked this first. So I made a half-hour format this, and I made a whole hour, and like I didn't pick like the final. Okay.
Oh,
I didn't say which end. Yeah, because I figured this was gonna go on for long.
Yeah. No worries. So. Yeah, when we feel like we've figured it out, we can wrap up, and then people can chat or do whatever they want. So yeah, if anyone else has any other thoughts on groups, feel free to speak up. If not, we can end the YouTube broadcast and just chill till the next session.
Yeah. Okay. No, but using the feed, I don't know why that didn't come first. I mean, that's great. I guess I was so focused on like the ACL, or rather like just like kind of the ACL there.
which is definitely still important, but it's more. It becomes a question of then the ACL around who can access the feed.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
is, I think, a very normal way of thinking about it.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the key thing here is that, which I don't know, I don't remember if this was like one of the assumptions being made, is that there is a sort of like home for the group. The group has its own identity, essentially, which is
that's actually
a very important point to this, and which is why all of this sort of like feels very natural and falls into place easily. If that isn't something you want to require, it becomes a very different conversation, right?
Okay.
So like if you don't want the group to live at a URL and you want people to be able to, share posts within a group, then it's like now you're having people send messages out to other people and somehow indicate some sort of group thing around it, and that does become a very different question.
I think those are the type of groups that Greg always talks about when he's talking about his education groups that he follows on Twitter with specific hashtags that have specific followings within specific groups. So when Greg says, oh, we had a conversation on, I don't know, one of those open education groups, what he actually means is that I'm following a hashtag in my Twitter client that has all these same people in it, and we chat every weekend. And those groups don't really have this centralized home, because this is people all using different clients, all really in our IndieWeb case, it would be people all using their own websites without having this central URL that is the group. And that's a completely different step where ACL and everything becomes a lot harder. Because now if I want to post something on my website that's readable by the entire group, how does my website know, even if it supports auto-auth, right? But how does my website know that, oh, Aaron is coming on my website and wants to read my website. Did this post go out to him or not? Is he part of this group that I wanted my post to go out to? And that's the next level step, where you need some sort of discoverable group member list thing that also needs to be trustable somehow.
That feels very different. That's also not how the Twitter one works, right? Because the Twitter one's all public. So the Twitter one is everybody is assumed to be allowed to be a member and can just post on the hashtag. So like I think that presents enough challenges on its own without any kind of access control that I think that is like something that maybe we want to discuss. But adding access control to that, I don't think is a valid discussion topic right now, because the current model doesn't work that way. Whereas like we do have models of Facebook groups and Google groups and like private forums and things that have access control.
Yeah, for sure. No, I wanted to give the another meaning for group, basically, and wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, the Twitter hashtag group, I think, is a really interesting case, because it is actually closer to the current Indie News, aside from the fact that Indie News lives at a URL. But it is, everybody can just post to it, and there is no concept of joining or leaving. It's just you can just post messages and people can find them using the hashtag. And like that is actually what IndieWeb.xyz is, right? Like if you hashtag your post with IndieWeb.xyz / one of the little paths, that's essentially a hashtag, and it aggregates content on that hashtag. Doing it without all that content living at a URL is a very different problem.
Yeah.
But I think that there's enough advantages to the like having the group have its own identity that it is a totally normal way to explore this and do it.
Yeah, even if
Twitter approach. No, go ahead. You got it.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, even if a group has its own identity, that doesn't necessarily mean it has to have its own URL. Like, I can imagine, like, it could be, you could have something that is like Indie News, but that happens on a subset of my website. I mean, it might seem a little bit strange at first, but in Facebook, like, Facebook says, at like the top of the group page, like, the owner or admin is like Eddie, right? I guess you can add multiple owners or admins. So that's where it starts to break down a little bit with the Facebook groups. But but I don't necessarily think like if there's a group of friends and I was creating a group for my friends, like I don't think I would have an issue with like eddiehinkle.com/group-name being
sure.
like
Okay.
indie news, you know?
Yeah.
No, I was wondering, like, I guess in the case of Twitter, like the group chats, they essentially do have a URI you can subscribe to, which would be the hashtag itself. Like if you navigate it to like the twitter.com/search,
Fair.
like that the hashtag, yeah, like I was like, because that's your discoverability factor, which is like one perk that they have there. Like you can just go there and it's all aggregated there. That's how you join there. It's not even really joining, like you're contributing to that feed. Yeah, discoverability is gonna be like Achilles heels, this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
okay. Yeah.
An interesting thought about that kind of pulls in that topic of audience that a couple people have touched based on, because how do you find discoverability? Well, typically, right, on Twitter, you don't know about a hashtag until you see someone. I mean, there's trending and all that stuff, but you see someone post a tweet with a hashtag and you're like, oh, let me click on that hashtag and see what other people are saying about that. And if someone is posting to a particular group, whether you use it audience or a U dash category, like a URL tag, which I think is what we do with IndieWeb.xyz. But if you have something like that, you could go ahead and say, you know, you see someone's post that posts to it and you're like, that's an interesting post. I want to see other posts like it. Like that's one way into discoverability for that.
Oh, discovery into that feed, into that tag. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Like, right. A lot of organic Twitter growth happens is you follow someone who talks about something and then you link through from what they posted to, you know, the source content. And then you kind of start talking about that same thing. So I think a lot of that organic growth happens because you follow someone and they post about it. So just making sure whether it's like, you know, using an audience tag or whether it's using like a URL based category, like whatever way it happens, making sure that the kind of where that content is living, where they're syndicating it to, is on the post so that your reader can show that. Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm actually kind of curious. Like, would I guess posts addressed to a group, should they be marked up differently or presented differently in a reader?
In a reader, I think so. I think it's important to show the context of where the post is coming from.
But also to who is addressed.
Yeah, so I do this on my posts that I post to an audience. I have a concept of like, and I do it mostly when I'm posting, like when I send an email to an email list, I like to have it on my site also. So but it doesn't make sense as just like a post on my site. So I put at the top, like, this is sent to this group, like this mailing list group.
Okay. Yeah.
And I've done a similar thing. I take some classes online, and so when I write a post for a class, I've tagged the like discussion board forum URL, or things like that as the audience. Like I'm talking to this class. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I feel lots of stuff I can fold into like well, one into the wiki page for this, but also like into like a semi-demo implementation kind of thing. Yeah, I already have an idea how I can like get that group thing going. I mean, to be honest, if I do this the way I'm thinking it, essentially people could just write to like a, what do you call it, like a subdirectory on my site, which would be kind of weird. Essentially would turn into, what do you call it, a guest book of sorts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Which would be kind of interesting. Yeah. Actually, no, that's exactly what I'll do. Yeah, it'll be like a guest book that lasts for 1 week. You get to post this thing and it'll stay there for there. I mean, visibly, it'll be there for, probably keep it a little longer. Where is my pen? I'm gonna just hope that's captured. But yeah. Okay. So I guess like this is not necessarily like groups, but like like a subscribe topic or something that people can then congregate on and like publish content directly towards. Provided a page that receives mentions can then show it.
Yeah, I think that's the basic building blocks, and then as auto auth and different things like that start maturing a little bit more, hopefully in the near future, you can take that base that you made and start building on top of it, because you have to have that base before access control lists and all that kind of stuff is definitely something that's useful for your use case, but you don't get there until you've got a basic feed underlying it and the ability for people to add things, send things to it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, that is largely it for me. I'm actually gonna quickly use the bathroom because I had my 1 liter of water for the day already.
No worries.
So, all right,
cool. Before we shut down, does anyone else want to chat about Twitter hashtags, or everyone feel good about the discussion?
I'm feeling pretty good. I feel like that's a good path forward on like something we can try.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Cool. Alrighty. Next up in 15 minutes is post type testing.
yeah.
So check out the wiki for the link to that. And yeah.
Nice.